live, and then you can start.
Okay. I believe we're live now.
Just give me one. Yep, we're live.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum, everyone. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. So I will be your moderator today, inshallah. My name is Shahira, and I'm looking forward to discussing the 8th word with everyone here. Just a reminder that this is a conversational class, and I am always up for learning from all of you. And if you have any input or insights, please feel free to share in the chat box or to simply unmute and interject anytime. So to begin with, I just want to do like a very brief summary of last week's class, which is about the 7th word. And I'm going to look at my notes here. So in the last class, we learned about how we cannot separate belief in God from belief in the hereafter, because our existence and purpose cannot be limited to this world alone, as our desires and our expectations for eternality or the eternal and perfection, it simply cannot be satisfied in this world. So the hereafter, it necessitates the existence of the hereafter. And that in this life, everyone is given 2 options in this world. And this is actually related to what we will be discussing today, in that we always have 2 options in life, and we're always presented with another option, or we're always tempted. Even the best of us gets tempted. And that's why we discuss what it means when the author said man can be deceived. And we are often deceived in times of worry and times when things don't go according to plan. And what it means to be deceived is to be tempted, to explore other options that is not according to the law or the command of the Creator. Therefore, we need to constantly polish and strengthen our belief in the Creator, or we will fall into this sense of complete ownership or a wrong evaluation of our reality. And this is something I personally struggle with, because in the secular world, we're always reminded about ownership, how we should take ownership of our life and our responsibilities. And that's something I agree with, but I am also trying to balance it with entrusting my life and my reality to the Creator. So this leads me to our discussion today, which is the 8th word. And it starts with, in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, which is Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. And then God, there is no God but He, the ever-living, the self-subsistent. So this is a verse that we often recite. Allahu la ilaha huwal hayyul qayyum. This is in Surah Ayatul Kursi. And I would like us to take a moment to reflect on why we are being brought back to in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, for a second. Is there anyone here who would like to share any thoughts or ideas as to why we are starting this discussion, or why the author is repeating this verse in this text? Yes, please go ahead, Fariha.
Assalamu alaikum. So I find myself existing. Here I am, I'm given existence. And so if I'm given existence, then I must have a one that's giving me existence. So this notion of things are not, a random act. Even my existence is not a random act. Rather, I'm being given existence. So there must be a one that is giving me existence. So it's really drawing our attention to an absolute source of existence.
Yes, perfect. I completely agree with that. Anyone else? Taya, please go ahead.
I think we see in the name of God, the most merciful, the compassionate, a lot when we're reading the Quran as well. And I think it's a constant reminder, God just trying to let us know how compassionate and how merciful he is. Because I feel like our knack as humans is we always forget that, we dwell on the negative, we dwell on the things that we don't do well. And I think whenever I see this, it's a constant call from him trying to tell us, like, I'm always here. I'm merciful, I'm merciful, I'm merciful. I'm here. I think even understanding that he knows that this life may be very difficult for us sometimes, but he's constantly, letting us know, I'm merciful, merciful, merciful. For me, whenever I see, me seeing that right now is what I was thinking here. Why is he letting us know? Like, I'm going through all of these words with you. We're going through this. It may feel like a lot, but guess what? I'm merciful. I'm compassionate. I have your back. That sort of thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I really like that. Thank you. So I think when we are reading the Quran, and also when we're reading this text that's in front of us, we should think of it as if it's speaking to us and inviting us to engage in a conversation with it. So when I see the words in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, I ask myself, why did the author put this verse right in the beginning once again? And just like Fariha and Taya, I believe it's a reminder of what my existence means. It's also a gentle introduction of the text of the topic we'll be discussing, and a reminder of the qualities of who is presenting this message, these ideas, and these lessons to us. So thank you for sharing. In the next line, we have the verse, God, there is no God but he, the ever-living, the self-subsistent. And I usually take this verse for granted, but this class is always pushing me to question, to unpack the meaning of what I read. So, Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum. What does it mean to you when you read this? Why is God identified first as a subject? And then once again, we have qualities of the subject being described. What can we extract from this verse and statement? And why are the qualities being juxtapositioned? Why are we being informed of them? Any ideas? Please, if you have any ideas you want to share, please go ahead. You can take your time if you wish, because it took me some time. Yeah, okay, Taya, go ahead.
Again, I think another sign of comfort when he says there is no God but he, not necessarily thinking of another God, but thinking about all the things in this world that we sort of come into contact with and allowed to overpower us sometimes. Like we get distracted by a lot of our worries and the things that um, we encounter. And here it feels again very comforting, him letting us know there's no God but me. So it sounds like to me like I'm here for you. You don't have to worry. Like this is, put it in my hands is what it sounds like. Recognize me. I'm self-sufficient. I'm ever living. I'm not going anywhere. I got your back. You don't have to do it alone. It just feels like comfort to me here. Again, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what about the qualities of God that's being described here? How does that bring comfort to you? Or does it bring comfort to you? Or does it not?
Oh, absolutely. When ever living, just letting he's infinite. It's so many good. It makes me feel very positive. It just lets me know that no matter what, he's always there. He doesn't require anything from me to exist. And he's always like he's the thing that I should be paying attention to. So ever living, when I think of that, it's just like an infinite existence, and that goes beyond what I'm even able to perceive in this life. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm bigger than anything that you could fathom. There's no God but me. There's nothing that is bigger than me. Like so anything you're going through, whatever, I'm here. It just feel when I read that, it just feels like I'm here. We got this. Let's go.
All right. Thank you for sharing that. Because I think, it's a revelation of our Creator's qualities that we may not know or we may not fully understand. And so when we see these words, the ever living, the self subsistent, it pushes us, it compels us to understand what it means. And like you said, God is saying that he's bigger than everything. He's bigger than you and I. And so I think it's a reminder of the nature of our existence in comparison to the creators. We're not ever living, we're not immortal, and we're not self-sufficient in this world. And our existence is dependent on the creator's existence, the creator's qualities, and his will and order. And to me, that is, comforting, like you said, because if everything were up to me, I would be very worried. And if everything were up to anyone else that we rely on, we would at some point be disappointed. So, is there anyone else who would like to share? Okay. And so the next verse that we are presented with is verily the religion before God is Islam. And this makes me question why it's important for us to acknowledge this. And I have a bunch of questions, even just reading this, like, what does this mean? What is Islam? What is the message within the statement? And why is this message for me. And if there is anyone who is more knowledgeable about the interpretation or the meaning of this verse, you're most welcome to share it. Or if you have any ideas what it could mean, please share. The only thing that comes to mind when I read it is this a confirmation that Islam is the only way to worship the Creator? Is it inviting me to investigate what Islam means, not only within the context it was introduced and spread in the world, but also within the context of my life and the world we live in today? I also wonder, if it means that, because we're in submission to the Creator's order, regardless of what we believe in. That's what we have been learning in this class. But perhaps the most favorable choice for our soul is to submit to the order of the Creator and to rely on the ever-living and self-subsistent. That is what's most favorable for us, what's going to bring us prosperity, security, happiness. What do you think this verse means? Verily, the religion before God is Islam. Kasim, please go ahead.
So personally, I read this as the religion to God is Islam. And I think the first thing I would like to define for myself, at least here, is what does religion mean for me? And I view religion as essentially a worldview, a perspective. And then, of course, what does God mean here? And what does Islam mean here? So I think Islam is one of those perspectives, one of those worldviews amongst many others. And God in this, in this verse, for me, again, just means reality, like the absolute truth. So I personally, like interpreted this verse as the perspective or worldview to know the absolute truth is Islam. And what is Islam? I guess personally for me is not defined within this verse. That would be everything, including this verse and the other verses in this book. But yeah.
Thank you. It is definitely a perspective and a way for us to view the world we live in. But you could say the same about culture, right?
Right.
So what makes religion different from culture?
I'm not sure if it does. For me, at least, I think you could choose to believe in your culture to a point where it becomes your religion. And you can also turn a religion into a culture. I think anything which is practice only without, I guess, deeper understanding is almost culture. And anything with understanding plus practice is religion.
Right. So in this class, we like to question what it is that we really believe in, what it is that we are truly practicing. Is it culture? Is it religion? What is the difference? Does anyone else have anything to add to that? So there's a comment here. Okay, Taya says, Taya, would you like to expand what it means, what you mean when you say culture serves people?
Yeah, I think I think that, okay, I don't know how to articulate it. That culture, when I say culture serves people, I feel like the intent and the focus of a culture is for its people and not necessarily for God. It's not based on things that are for God. It's usually for ourselves. So I think that's sometimes how we get confused with what Quran and Sunnah is teaching us versus what different cultures have adapted as their way of life according to what they believe. So again, it's about what they've constructed and not necessarily what Quran and Sunnah and what God is actually teaching us. And religion is supposed to serve God only. I think sometimes we let culture get into religion, and that's where we mess things up. So like even with me, new Shahada, 2.5 years, yay, coming into it and learning about the different disparities that, like for instance, like the ideas that I heard before I understood or started researching Islam myself about women in Islam and things that were absolutely not true, that weren't in the Quran, that weren't in Sunnah. It was a part of a culture that was dominating the conversation, whereas in the religion in the Sunnah it said nothing like that. Women were protected, women are honored. It's beautiful. So I think that's what I mean when I say culture serves people and religion serves God. And I think, and just to go back to what you guys were saying about the religion before God is Islam, I'm kind of feeling like it's not trying to say that, even though I believe it, that Islam, it's not saying Islam itself, it's saying submission more to me, is the thing that is the religion before God. So if we submit to the will of God, that is the only religion. And if we do that, then we'll only be led to truth. We'll understand, like, so everybody will be led to the truth. So that's my little.
Thank you. And I'm on the same page as you. I think what this verse is trying to say is that we should submit to something that is designed by the creator. And I think it's so interesting that you said culture is something that serves people and their desires and their agendas. And it's so important that we remember religion shouldn't be used the same way. I'm going to read 2 more comments here. Unless you would like to read it yourself. I don't know how to pronounce this, Jess Bell. The comment is, would you like to read it yourself?
Sure, I can.
Okay,
I'm sorry, trying to get back to the chat. So you can indulge in a culture without any conversation about the divine is the first thing that I said. Because obviously, as the sister just pointed out, and as you have sort of touched on, there's a lot of overlap between culture and religion. They cover a lot of the same spaces and do sometimes serve the same purposes to unite us, to make us feel like a community. I see another sister on the street with her head covered, and I know that she's a part, so of what it is that we all call it and consider Islam. So there is a culture to the religion, but the two things are not inextricably linked. And you can be religious without necessarily being indulged in the culture associated with your religion, which I feel like a lot of reverts like myself experience. Participating in Islam kind of in a vacuum, because you don't have the aunties and the cousins and all this stuff to reinforce that culture. So, but that's more talking about the differences, not necessarily talking about the question that you were asking. So.
No, that's fine. That's fine. And you said religion is a system that assumes to touch the invisible aspects of people. I find that so fascinating. Would you like to elaborate?
It was easy to type that little thing, but now as I'm trying to expand on it, culture, you know, it sometimes inhabits the realm of invisible, right? But it's hard for me to give words to it. Normally, when we think about culture, we think about food, we think about dance, we think about textiles, we think about things that are physical, right? And like I said, there is a physicality to the culture of religion, but religion is not about the physical. It's not, you use your body to perform in a certain way to speak about the aspects of your soul.
Mm-hmm.
I cover my hair out of obedience to God. So it's not culture. It's me showing something in, you know what I mean? Like I'm trying to give it the right words, but some people dress a certain way because they want to be perceived a certain way by others, right?
Mm-hmm.
Treated with a certain respect, acknowledged as male or female, rich or poor, whatever. And then there are people who dress a certain way because they want their spirits to be cared for. And religion covers that realm of actions in the physical that are intended to act on the invisible body, the spirit, the soul, the heart, all that stuff that has no physicality, and all of that, you know, that belongs purely to Allah. So does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. Because
Okay.
in religion, we talk about the unseen.
Mhm.
And this is what I interpret when you say the invisible aspects of people, the unseen parts of who we are, our spirit, right?
Right.
So yeah, I agree. It is it answers our human questions. Religion is something that attends to these existential questions that we have, these ruminations that we may have about our existence and our purpose, and religion answers those questions. Doesn't matter what religion you subscribe to, but that is to me a difference between religion and culture. It does touch the unseen aspects of who we are. Thank you for sharing. Another comment from Safina. Islam means to surrender. So Allah Ta'ala reminds us that religion of Islam is surrendering to Him. And culture does not necessarily include religion. Thank you. A lot of times, culture is not about religion. It is about the societal standards of that time and our personal agendas and whatever is accepted within a particular community or society. To me, that is what culture is and how it differs from religion. Religion is something that does not change in terms of principle. So this has been a very illuminating discussion on the difference between culture and religion. Thank you. Would anyone else like to share? Dr. Murmur, yes, please go ahead.
Indeed, it is illuminating. I'm learning a lot. I'm very pleased that I'm part of this community, small community though. Doesn't matter really. I'm very proud of everyone joining this discussion. And amazing comments. I'm not going to, I don't have anything to add. I'm not going to add anything to what it said. Just I wanted to draw the attention between the combination of two verses at the beginning of the text. I felt that there is a difference, there is a link, connection between God is being the ever-living one, God is being the self-subsistent one, and also Islam is directly related to this reality that Islam is a way of life which depends on the self-subsisting, ever-living one. That is the connection. I'm sure all the people, our friends, talked so far contributed to this understanding by rightly talking about the difference between religion and culture. So culture has no dimension, as it is stated by our friends here, no dimension of depending itself, founding himself on a ever-living one and self-subsistent, absolute being, eternal being. So what we are going to now hear in the parable or any kind of storytelling in the following of the passage, or following passages, we will see that whether one should really submit himself to an ever-living one, to a self-subsistent one, or not. That is the question. Accordingly, our human side, our human spirit, either will be in a self-confident position, making sure and securing his existence and knowing who he is, or terrible situation, everything is shaky, nothing is stable, and the life has no security at all. So the religion must have, any religious idea, any religious attitude, any religious action must have must have an aspect of depending and in understanding one's life and one's action depending on the ever-living one, self-subsisting one. That's why the combination of these two verses attracted my attention. And I said, oh, the author is really very much aware of what he's talking about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Murmur. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, that there is a link between these two verses in the author's discussion. So let's begin reading the text. If you want to understand this world and man's spirit within the world, and the nature and value of religion for men, and how the world is a prison if there is no true religion, and that without religion, man becomes the most miserable of creatures, and that it is, O God, and there is no God but God, that solve this world's talisman and deliver the human spirit from darkness. Then listen to and consider this comparison. So as I read this, these two phrases caught my attention, and it is, O God, and there is no God but God, la ilaha illallah. And once again, I'm called to ask myself, who is this God with capital G, and what does God with lowercase g mean to me? What does la ilaha illallah mean to me? And so I asked myself, what is a God? Does anybody want to share what a God could mean to them, or what God means to them? I'll start with my understanding of what a God with lowercase g means to me. A God could be a source of what we understand to be our source of security in this world, our source of comfort, a source of something that we need, like a provider. And a God could also be other creations that we may seek all these things from. So a person's God could be the job that they have, or the social circle that they're in. They think that having this social status is going to provide them with a sense of belonging, a sense of security in this world. But here it says, there is no God but God. There's no God but Allah. if you have any comments on what this means to you, la ilaha illallah, just let me know. And then the next thing that caught my eye is how, oh God, and there's no God but God, is what will deliver the human spirit from darkness. And how do you define the experience of darkness in terms of the human spirit? So I want you to reflect on yourself. How has your spirit experienced darkness? And I'll share some of my thoughts on this. And I also asked my husband what he thinks is darkness in terms of human spirit, and we both came up with these answers. So shaitan, falseness, such as false beliefs, negative thoughts, confusion, fear, depression. And it's interesting to say that depression is a kind of darkness, because a person who is in depression is unable to appreciate the present and unable to envision the future. Another kind of darkness for the human spirit is uncertainty and insecurity. Are there any other examples that you would like to share in terms of what is darkness for the human spirit? And why do you think La ilaha illallah, oh God, delivers us from darkness? You can think about that as we discuss this parable in front of us that illustrates a journey of two men, or it could be two women too, and their experience of spiritual darkness and light according to the choice that they made. Or this parable could also be a representation of the two sides within us, the good and the bad, and how we're always battling between these two sides. So I'm going to read this journey if there's no one else who would like to share. Long ago, two brothers set off on a long journey. They continued on their way until the road forked. And at the fork, they saw a serious-looking man and asked him, "Which road is good?" He told them, "On the road to the right one is compelled to comply with the law and order, but within that hardship is security and happiness. However, on the left-hand road, there is freedom and no restraint, but within its freedom lie danger and wretchedness. Now the choice is yours." I am just seeing the comments now, so I will share, unless you would like to share it. I see the darkness as distance from God, truth, and ultimate reality. Thank you. Would you like to speak more on that?
I don't know the name of the person who said it, but the brother who spoke earlier made a comment that was really touching to me when he said something about Allah as ultimate truth. I think he said God is reality or ultimate truth or something like that. And in the commentary that I made, it was sort of in that same line of thought, how do I want to say this? Yeah, distance from God, the idea that the plight that you're in could not be solved by the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? The idea that Allah is not so over-encompassing as to be more powerful than your struggles as a human being is darkness. Like the idea that if you were to pray and turn your thoughts to God, that would not be enough in that moment is darkness. if that makes sense. I feel like I'm not making sense. I'm sorry.
No, it makes sense. Thank you. And I also think that darkness is this separation from God, truth, and ultimate reality. Because, alhamdulillah, we're blessed with knowing that we have a creator, but some people don't know that they have a creator, or they don't acknowledge that they have a creator, and that is a separation that's very painful, I believe. The next comment is from Jamila. God to me means all other creations. That's God with a lowercase g. And God with a capital G means the Almighty. Darkness seems to mean to me all the things that can afflict the spirits. Interesting. I automatically thought about depression and this emptiness. And H. Beza, false appropriation or lack of awareness. Yes, there is a darkness that we feel that's associated with not attributing our qualities to the creator, or just this lack of awareness of our creator, or who our creator is, who our creator is. Thank you. And so in this paragraph, we are being presented with two people and two roads. And on the right road, it is a road of law and order, and hardship is acknowledged, but it is explained that within that hardship is security and happiness. And on the other hand, we have the left road, where there is freedom and no restraint. But it is acknowledged that within that freedom, there is danger and wretchedness. Why is there hardship in following law and order? And what does law and order mean to you? Do you have any examples that you like to share in your life that could possibly explain what this means? That there is, within hardship, there is security and happiness. And this hardship, it comes from following law and order. So if anyone has any thoughts on what this alludes to, please share, because it's a very interesting statement to make here. Because to me, how can there be security and happiness in hardship or from hardship? It seems like a paradox or an oxymoron. How do you make sense of this? Okay, so there's a comment from Huda. Mental illness is real. You are entitled to your opinion, however, it's insensitive to conflate mental illness with being in a state of darkness. Okay. I believe mental illness is real, and it's something that you need to that we need to seek professional help with. But yeah, it's I'm not conflating it. I'm sorry if it comes out that way. In other words, it is physiological. Yeah, it is a neurological state. So yeah, I'm not saying that someone who is depressed, it's due to a lack of faith or anything like that. Not at all. But as someone, like, I experience anxiety, and I feel like that is a kind of darkness that I feel in this when I experience anxiety. So yeah, does anyone have any thoughts on on why there is happiness and security in hardship. And what this law and order, what could law and order be? Yes, Dr. Murmur, please share.
Where I live, in the house, next to my house, there is a fire station. The firemen always, not necessarily that they are cold, and that's why they are going out and using the fire sirens, and as if there is a very important things are going on then, but they are training. Why, even while they are going on training, what they do, they carry all their stuff, all of them. It is so heavy. As the fire engine turns back to get into the fire station, I see that all the people, all the firemen, take all their clothing equipments for a fireman, and they say, "Whew, whew, this is what I mean." That is very heavy, really. And when the weather is hot, especially, it is almost not really impossible to carry. That reminded me this discussion, which I said, yeah, when they carry all these loads of things, equipments, tools, etc., that is how they feel secure because of the danger they may come. To them, they can only protect their life by wearing the helmet on their head and wearing the fire resistant clothes and having also equipment to tear down if something needs to be torn down in order to extinguish the fire. That's how they feel secure. So as far as the human side of us is concerned, we have to take the necessary equipment so that we will feel secure in our existence. For example, if a fireman says, I am brave enough to challenge the fire by myself, doesn't carry this securing equipment, he endangers his life. Exactly in the same way. If I say, I can secure my life, I can secure my existence, I can guarantee everything by myself, I will be the fireman with no fire equipment. It means I cannot protect myself against the danger of falling into despair because I cannot really secure my existence. I cannot really secure my future, especially while the death is waiting for me, while I am aging, getting closer step by step to death and leaving this world, but my spirit is burning for eternal happiness. I cannot really satisfy myself by myself. So I have to see the contradiction in this wonderful way of creating the things that I need eternal happiness, eternal security for myself. On the other hand, I cannot do anything. I cannot create anything. I cannot guarantee my life tomorrow, anything. Of course, I need food, but food is created for me out there. No, it is not the farmers that are creating the food. It is not the accidentally happening things that are providing the air and the sunlight, etc., whatever I need. Everything is provided by somebody else. So I have to search for it. What is the source of this security that I can seek refuge with it, carry with me like the firemen with their fully equipped uh, dressing clothes, so I will feel secure within myself. So that is what the verse at the beginning of the text the author cited, seek refuge with the one who is ever living, ever self-sustaining, ever powerful, all powerful, who is the source of existence of this universe, who created the universe, who created everything, include in the world, including your need for eternal happiness. You have to submit to it. That is Islam. Submitting to it. Take your responsibility. Remind yourself that you have an owner, you have a protector. He guarantees your future. He guarantees to provide whatever you need as a human being. He can do that and or follow his will, teaching, guidance in this life. So he says, okay, remember me 5 times a day with all your mind, all your feelings, and including your body, because you are living in this body. That's why we have to remind ourselves at least 5 times a day that I have an owner who can really satisfy my needs, etc. These are the equipments that we take refuge with in this life, so that we fast in order to understand who the provider of all the beautiful food that we are presented, in order to acknowledge it, physically practice it, etc. That is what Islam is all about. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing, Dr. Murmur. Yes, all the provisions that we carry is sometimes hard on us, but it's what we need to grant us the security and the happiness that we need in this life. Aisha Noor, I see your comment, and it's beautiful. Would you like to share it yourself, or would you like me to read it?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for this wonderful moderation. I mean, I can read it. So I upon your question of how is it that, in this example that the text is giving us, it seems like there's this choice between, on the right, you are given security and happiness in the face of hardship, and on the left, there's apparently freedom but danger. And knowing myself, especially perhaps a younger version of myself, I'd say, well, freedom goes above everything else. I prefer freedom over anything, even if it doesn't guarantee happiness and security. I don't want to sacrifice that. But, just reading what I wrote, I think within the hardship, I feel my vulnerabilities as a human being, right? Within hardships I may experience as, as a student, as an employee, as someone in various different relationships. I face hardships all the time. And in face of these hardships, sure, I will, try my best to take steps within the order that I recognize in trying to absolve those hardships. But at the end of the day, I see that I am vulnerable as a human being, that I have needs, and I am completely needy. And of course, I don't want to offer these needs and this neediness and this dependence upon other human beings, but I require a one who can resolve those needs, who can meet those needs, right? My inability to guarantee even my own existence, even my own breath from right now to the next moment, or my existence 10 years from now, or even my youth, or any sort of ability I have 10 years from now, 5 days from now. I face existential insecurity all the time. But in these hardships, in these moments, I think that I'm given opportunities to recognize this very reality that I face, the fact that regardless of anyone's life situation, there's always some form of hardship. And they come in varying degrees and levels, but everyone, from my relationship with my niece, to my cat, to perhaps people that I deem important, like an employer or a professor. I face all this as a human being. This is my human reality, and I want and I seek a one who can provide me with security in the face of these, who can provide me with happiness, not just in absolving one hardship, but in an eternal sense, in an eternal form, in the state that I am here now. I want to experience that security. I want to experience that eternal happiness here, right now, because I exist here and now. And so I think, seeking refuge in my creator, in a one that I can conclude and confirm as the one who is absolute, the one who is providing me with sustenance and with existence, offers me this sense of assurance. And so I think, these hardships dissolve any sort of illusion I have of self-sustenance. I mean, we see this most clearly when we're sick, right? With just a small, I don't know, virus in our body or anything, any illusion we have of self-sustenance, of being able to regulate our own bodies just on a physical realm. And then, there are deeper dimensions of much past the material. And that allows me to recognize that I am meant to seek one that can provide me with sustenance, that is constant, that is with guidance, right? If we go again beyond the physical, because I also require guidance. I need guidance. I don't know how to act sometimes. I don't know what are the right choices in my life. And I am faced with a plethora of choices all the time. And so finding these needs met in one who can offer complete security and complete happiness in an eternal form. And I think that is genuine freedom. So it's not really a choice between happiness and security within context of hardship versus freedom in the context of danger. No, I mean, the freedom in the other one, where I tremble before every single being and I'm trying to meet everyone's expectations and I'm trying to constantly do things myself because I think I'm the source of ability or anything. That's not freedom. That's making myself a slave to all the needs that I face, all the hardships that I face, rather than taking genuine refuge. And so, it's security, happiness, freedom, all of these are under the same umbrella, on the same path. Just wanted to share that. Thank you again.
Thank you, Aishinur. I really enjoyed that. And I think that hardship, as you describe it, is like an invitation to look beyond what it is and see it as perhaps a path that leads to how we can seek true security, true happiness, and true resolution, and to seek the truth, right? And just to seek the truth. So that's how I made sense of this paragraph. Like, hardship is really something that we should look beyond the surface. And like you said, it creates this better comprehension of who I am and who my creator is, and what my purpose is in this world. So on the surface, it looks like something that is difficult, but really it's almost like an invitation, like, hey, there's more to this than what it seems. And like you said, it's not a choice between happiness versus freedom, because there is freedom in having these guidelines, in submitting to the will and the order of the creator, as opposed to the order of the culture or the order of the society that we live in. Okay, if anyone else has anything to share.
I had something I wanted to offer.
Yes, sure.
And it was in part because when the comment came up in the chat about depression, I'm someone who's dealt with depression since I was a small child. I was diagnosed as a teen, and I'm almost 40 now. So, it's 40 years of having been in that space of trying to navigate self-care and dealing with a neurological problem that was exacerbated by my experience, right? I wanted to make a comment because on the one hand, you can experience a depression without having a neurological problem. And to my ear, when you first mentioned depression, that seemed to be more like what you were talking about. For instance, if someone dies, you might become depressed because you've lost someone you care about. You know, there are people who are depressed right now because Corona is stressing them out. That's not neurological, that is environmental. And that is something that can be affected more easily by doing the things that people talk about: take a walk, call your friend, eat better, et cetera, in a ways that neurological depression cannot. So I wanted to make that distinction just because I felt like that might help in terms of clarity. But also, as I was thinking about that, I thought about what I have had to do for myself in terms of a certain obedience to what I know is truth that can be mapped onto obedience to Allah Ta'ala. In that, for instance, depression is often described by medical professionals as a habit, not only a neurological issue, but just like someone who bites their fingernails and can't get themselves to stop, like obsessive compulsive disorder. You get used to responding to your pain by withdrawing, by not taking care of yourself, by self-harming, and then it marks itself onto your brain. It becomes something that you can't get out of. So it is neurological, but it is also affected by your behavior in the physical world. I mentioned that to say part of my depression is insomnia, and I will worry and stay online and read a book and work and keep myself from sleep, which makes it harder to wake up, which makes it harder for me to function in the world, which in terms, over time will bring me back into states of depression, right? It's easy for me in the moment to say I'm bored, I want to scroll on Instagram, I want to talk to my friend, I want to do this cute thing instead of going to bed like I need to, right? And in making that choice not to obey the needs of my body, I set myself up for more pain, more depression, more tired days, more crankiness, et cetera, et cetera. So in thinking about myself and how I've dealt with depression in my life, my tendency when I get sad is to not pray, to not eat, to not take care of my physical or my spiritual self, because it's easier to just lay there and be sad. That's what the habit tells me to do. But if I'm willing to get up and do the work and bow and recite, etc., I even if it doesn't feel better in the immediate, over time it's going to protect me from what that habit would have brought me into. So that's kind of what I'm hearing for myself personally when I read this story about the easy path, because it's very easy to stay in your habits of self-harm. It's very easy to stay depressed, especially if you're talking about something that is mostly neurological. Then you can blame it on your brain and not do any of the work. But even the neurological brain is plastic, and you can teach it new ways. So even within the realm of depression being something that is neurological, you can still act on your brain to cause change in your physiology. And I think that it's a good metaphor for our relationship to Allah Ta'ala, if that makes sense. I always feel like I'm saying a bunch of not making sense. So I hope that's clear.
Thank you. That was very clear. And I'm really glad you mentioned neuroplasticity, because we can create new pathways in our brain nodes. And I like that we're discussing things that are very real to so many people. And religion is something should address these issues, these concerns, these problems that we face every single day. And these classes or these discussions should be relevant. And I'm glad that you made it very relevant. And even to the other sister, Sister Huda, thank you for bringing that up, because it just made this discussion more relevant and more robust, in my opinion. So thank you very much for your inputs. And I think not just depression, but even anxiety, I think it is a form of hardship. But like I mentioned before, it's like it is an invitation to security and happiness. Yeah. So thank you for sharing. I'm going to proceed to the next paragraph now, if that's okay. Sister Jess Bell, your mic is still muted.
Oh, my mic is still on. I'm sorry.
Yes, Mom. Yes.
I was being silly in the chat. Taya said cognitive therapy, and I said Allah sent me CBT to hold me over until I found Islam.
Oh,
So,
all right. So the next paragraph, after listening to this, saying, I place my trust in God, the brother or the sister with a good character took the right road and conformed to the order and regulations. The other brother or sister, who was immoral and a layabout, chose the road to the left just for the lack of restrictions. Without our imaginations, we shall follow this man or woman in their situation, which was apparently easy, but in reality burdensome. So in this paragraph, I didn't know what layabout meant. So if there's anyone else here who doesn't know the definition of the word, it means a person who habitually does little or no work. Okay. And in this paragraph, what I wanted to talk about a bit more is what it means to say I place my trust in God. And, why the first person, brother, said I place my trust in God. And why it's important that the author mentioned this. Because the other brother or the other sister who didn't say this. So the first person, the one who's following, who's happy to comply with the law and order, said, I place my trust in God. And I think that's something that we should acknowledge in this paragraph because it sets the tone of their journey, essentially. If anyone has any comments about what's happening in this paragraph, please share. Otherwise, I will continue to the next one. Thus this man went uphill and down dale until he found himself in a desolate wilderness. He suddenly heard a terrifying sound and saw that a great lion had come out of the forest and was about to attack him. He fled. He came across a waterless well 60 yards deep, and in his fear jumped into it. He fell halfway down it, where his hands met a tree. He clung onto it. The tree, which was growing out of the wells of the wall, had 2 roots. 2 rats. Okay, let me see if I'm reading this correctly. I'm sorry. 2 rats, one white and one black, were attacking and gnawing through them. He looked up and saw that the lion was waiting at the top of the well like a sentry. He looked down and saw a ghastly dragon. It raised its head and drew it close to his foot, 30 yards above. Its mouth was as big as the mouth of the well. Then he looked at the well's walls and saw that stinging, poisonous vermin had gathered round him. He looked up at the mouth of the well and saw a fig tree, but it was not an ordinary tree. It bore the fruit of many different trees, from walnuts to pomegranates. Thus, due to his lack of thought and foolishness, the man did not understand that this was not just some ordinary matter. These things were not here by chance, and that there were mysterious secrets concealed in these strange beings. And he did not grasp that there was someone very powerful directing them. Now, although his heart, spirit, and mind were secretly weeping and wailing at this grievous situation, his evil commanding soul pretended that it was nothing. It closed its ears to the weeping of his heart and spirit, and deceiving itself, started to eat the tree's fruit as though it was in a garden. but some of the fruit were poisonous and harmful. Almighty God says in a divine hadith, I am according to how my servants think of me. So as the story progresses, we are learning that the brother or the sister who took who did not say that, you know, they put their trust in God and chose a path of quote unquote freedom and no restraint. And we discover that they are in some trouble right now. And what I noticed about this paragraph is the first line, due to his lack of thought and foolishness. And then the man did not understand that this was not just some ordinary matter. These things were not here by chance, and that there were mysterious secrets concealed in these strange beings. So it means that he didn't look for the hidden meaning of the other creations and the hidden meaning of what he is experiencing. That's the first thing that he did wrong. And the second thing is he ignored his conscience, which was his heart, spirit, and mind, even though they were secretly weeping and wailing, trying to call his attention, but he ignored his conscience. And this is all due to his lack of thought and foolishness. And then the paragraph ends with a hadith Qudsi, or divine hadith, of God saying, I'm according to how my servants think of me. It's a very interesting way of ending this paragraph and how it relates to being thoughtless and foolish. Does anyone have any thoughts on what's happening here? What's happening to this man? He's got himself in a bit of trouble here. And what has that got to do with the hadith of God saying, I'm according to how my servants think of me? Any thoughts? So I'll share my thoughts while you guys think about it. But remember the part where I said the first man or the first sister, the first thing they did was to say that, you know, I place my trust in God. And so the first thing that occurred to him was that I have a creator. That's the first thing. I acknowledge my creator, and I acknowledge that this is a path or whatever law and order that was given to me is to my benefit. Whereas the second brother or sister didn't even acknowledge that there is a creator behind all of this. And therefore, he only sees things that is on the surface. And he does not pay any mind to his conscience. Which means, what does this mean? What do you think? What did the foolish man think of his creator? Or did he think of his creator at all? What are your thoughts on this? For him to be thoughtless and to ignore his conscience, what is it reflect on his perception of this journey or the creator. Any thoughts?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Welcome, salam.
Yeah, I would just like to comment about the hadith, let's see, that you've mentioned. That hadith has been a lifesaver for me. It really anchors my day. When I'm lost for words near. I'm sorry, excuse me. If I see my creator as being there for me, as always looking after my best interest, then when I go about my day, I would also see that in my interactions with others. So it's empowering in a sense that is, it's really making me realize when I know that I am seeing that God has, God has my back, basically, the bottom line. So I get to decide how others, through that, I feel empowered because I get to decide how everything shows up for me, how other people show up for me. If somebody says, for example, if somebody says something hurtful, then I get to decide how to see it. Am I going to sit there and feel bad about it and say, this person hurt my feelings and so on? Or do I get to choose that, there is a deeper meaning to this, and God did not bring this person or did not allow this person to say something to me as a way to hurt me, but it is a sign. It's a wake-up call. So instead of getting absorbed into this feelings of being in pain and being in sadness, which is a human. I mean, it's a human to feel upset if somebody says something that's unkind to you. But I turn that around and I look at it as a sign. There is a sign, there's a message behind it, because Allah is my best friend and Allah wants what's best for me. And I know that there is an important message behind this. So I wish I knew about this hadith and I learned about it many years ago. But yeah, this is how I feel empowered by this hadith. Alhamdulillah. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Huda. That is a beautiful reflection and a reminder of how all of us can apply this this method, this way of thinking in our everyday lives. Thank you. Taya, Sister Taya, please go ahead.
I wrote, let's see, you cannot understand something you aren't looking, if you're not looking to understand it, you are just existing in it. So somebody who isn't recognizing God or choosing not to live by his order. So if you choose not to live by the law and order that he's providing, then you're not recognizing him. So thereby, you're not looking to understand anything. I think people who recognize God are constantly seeking his guidance, and then you're able to perceive and what do you call it, reflect on your world in a different sort of way. But if you're just existing, you're not really seeking anything, you're just existing. So you know that the whatever he did, he ate from this tree, is just he's existing, so he's just going to eat from the tree. He's not really thinking about he's not seeking anything. I think that once you recognize, God, that you're constantly seeking seeking this. And I think what did I write, seeking his guidance and hold on, I'm sorry, and I'm able to provide for you based on your ability to receive it. So again, I don't know, I wrote something and I don't know what it says, but basically that's sort of the idea that if you're not constantly, you know, if you're not seeking God, or you're not believing, you're not following, you're not looking for anything to tell you anything more than what is there. And I think about how Dr. Ali, what I find so fascinating and amazing is how he finds these metaphors within life, because he's constantly reflecting. So coming up with that the fire station metaphor is just amazing to me because it's just like I live near a fire station too, and I've never looked at the world in that way. But think about how God is speaking to him by him reflecting. What is he learning about God's qualities? So when I see I am according to how my servants think of me, I can give you. It's like he's saying, I can give you more of me. I can give you the perception of what this world, the view of what this world is, based on what you give, on your ability to receive it, or your want to receive it, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you so much for sharing. And yes, everything around us is a sign or an ayah of the Creator. And what I see in this paragraph also is that the conscience, or the heart, spirit, and mind is aware of this, and it's constantly calling us to understand and to investigate these signs and what they mean. That there's something more that we need to unpack here, that we need to study. So thank you for sharing, Taya. Dr. Marmar, I saw your hand was up earlier. Would you like to share something? Okay, well, we have 5 minutes left, so I'm going to
comment.
Oh, sure. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I actually can't put my hand up. I'm the co-host today for whatever reason, and I can't put my hand up, so sorry.
Okay.
I was going to say, if it's okay,
Yes.
on these paragraphs we just read, it's a pretty interesting analysis of what happens to someone who is not conscious of God. I mean, a lot of what we read up till now was this responsibility, or for example, the one compelled to comply in law and order. And we heard, I think, from Dr. Ali about what it means to take the responsibility in terms of Islam, or let's say in terms of religion, regarding prayer and fasting and these things. So the other person, now the one who was mentioned here, actually let me back up. So the one, now there's two brothers. One of them says, okay, I'm going to place my trust in God and enter that path. And it's nice that the author here explicitly mentions this, that he takes on this consciousness of God. But then he goes into the scenario of the second one, the immoral and layabout, right? And says, this one then, who doesn't take consciousness of God, he goes into his path, but what he immediately experiences is like this really difficult and tragic psychological set of issues, where he finds himself in a desolate wilderness, which is an interesting description of how not being conscious of God brings you into a certain state. And then, and I think the many other points here will be explained later in the text, but then here's terrifying sounds, and then here's, attacks and senses attacks around him, and senses, all, deep and serious, tragic, depth, falling into this, deep well, and so on. And so what's interesting is this kind of important way of understanding how lack of consciousness of God, or not being conscious, or not taking that responsibility, if you will, puts you in such a psychological state. So I guess that's really the main point that I wanted to point out. The story sounds a little, it's maybe hard at first to understand what's happening. Is it a real story? Is it not a real story? But of course, psychologically, we can understand it. It appears we can see what's happening based on the story.
Thank you, Adam, for sharing that. You're right. And at the same time, I feel all of us, well, maybe I should speak for myself, that I fall into this state of unconsciousness from time to time. And I too experience this this psychological torment. So there is a lesson in this story for myself, and inshallah for all of us here. Seeing that it's almost 1 o'clock, should we wrap up? What do you think?
Yeah, that works.
Okay. Thank you everyone for joining and for sharing your thoughts and for being vulnerable. I really enjoyed moderating today, and inshallah you guys have a wonderful weekend, and inshallah we will see each other next week. Dr. Murmur, would you like to do a closing dua?
I'm sorry, I don't see him in the chat group. Do you guys see him here? Okay, so I'm sorry. He asked me to help with something on the moderation side. If you'd like, sister, to close it with dua, you can. Otherwise, I can take that responsibility, or Qasim.
Please go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Qasim. Thank you. Brother Qasim.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Okay, if not, let me close it. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Wa akhir da'wana anil hamdu lillahi rabbil alamin. Al-Fatiha.